What's going on, everyone? It's time to introduce one of my personal vehicles into the YouTube channel here. This is my 1991 and a half Dodge Ram 250 with the first generation Cummins in it, and it's backed up with the 5-speed manual transmission, and it's 4-wheel drive. I absolutely love these trucks. They are so mechanical. They're so easy to work on, and they look really cool too, honestly. It's just an old school boxy look. But I got to do some work on this thing. I've had the truck for a couple years now, and I haven't really had to do much, but I have noticed it tends to like to leave its mark wherever it gets parked. It's leaking some oil underneath the motor, and the transmission is very wet. I'll get under there and show you it, but that's what my main focus is for this video, is to fix the oil leaks on this thing. But let's take a look around on this truck. And we'll do a little walk around here. So this truck has had a few owners. I'm from New England, southern New Hampshire, northern Mass. I bought this truck down in Maryland, but before that it went to Missouri, and then before that it was in Arizona, and before that the original owner, which was an old-timer, he lived in Colorado and used this truck to work on his farm and tow his horse trailer and cattle trailer around. I guess this was his work truck. The old timer passed away, and that's how the Arizona owners got to it. And I think they drove it around in Arizona for a few years, and it was time for them to move on with it. So they sold it to a person in Missouri, and as far as I know, he had it for a couple years, and then it made its way to Maryland. And that guy had it for about 3 to 4 years, and the reason why he sold it was because he lost his storage space. He couldn't keep it indoors anymore, so he needed to get rid of it, and now it's in my possession. I've had to do anything with this thing because it's a tractor, honestly, is what it is. They are very mechanically sound. They're very reliable. You see these motors with, honestly, 1,000,000+ miles on them, and they're still running like they have literally 10,000 miles on them. These trucks literally start, you hit the key, it starts immediately. So yeah, I like the black and silver two-tone paint scheme. These aluminum wheels look really nice on it, because these trucks come all with steel wheels with just like a hubcap on them, and it doesn't really look good. But these aluminum wheels make this truck, honestly. The windshield's tinted, side windows are tinted, so it's a good looking truck. Let's go inside and take a peek at it. So we got the nice red interior. I love the red, honestly, it looks good. 5-speed manual transmission, 4-wheel drive. And we got some aftermarket boost gauge and a fuel pressure gauge down there. We got power windows, power locks. Actually, it does have power mirrors too. So this was a nice truck, honestly, back in 1991. It's got the, I guess, what you would call wood grain dash. But I love this truck. There's not much to look at in here, but it's just nice. So let's take a peek under the hood too, actually. So here's your first generation Cummins 12 valve. Can't beat these things, can't kill them. Just leave them stock, honestly. Well, stock as in turn the pump up a little bit and just make it a driver so it can get out of its own way, because as you can see here, the horsepower rating is not very high, but these things tow very well. They tow very well. And so this is a 1991 and a half, because but the half year, they start 1991 and a half, they started putting the intercoolers on these trucks. From 89 to 91, these first gen Cummins were not intercooled. So from 91 and a half to 1993, when this body, 1993 was the last year of this body style, the later years were intercooled, so you got a little bit more power, got a little bit more colder air getting forced into the motor. The pump's turned up a little bit, and there is a fast lift pump on this truck as well. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much stock. It's got I guess a straight pipe on it too for a 4-inch. But there's no crazy modifications done to this thing. It's just a good driver. Let's get underneath the truck and see what I'm talking about when I say it marks its territory. So it's not that bad up front here, I guess, but I mean, there's like an oil drop right here. I mean, there's oil residue, and there's just residue and kind of gunk everywhere. Yeah, let me get behind the front axle because that's where you can really see it. There's just a little bit up here. Yeah, now you can kind of really see everything. So I mean, this thing, it's been leaking ever since I've owned it, and like I said, I've never done anything about it, but today is the day that changes. The transmission's not supposed to look like that. I don't know where the oil's coming from, so I gotta clean all this off. Even like, for all I know, the transmission could be leaking, because just look at just the years and stuff that this thing's been leaking, just kind of collecting residue and gunk over everything. So my plan is to clean this, and I mean, you can see it above the oil pan, it's all dry. So maybe it's the oil pan gasket. I'm not really sure. I gotta clean everything under here. Not only do we have the oil leak that I gotta deal with up there, but I actually just looked back towards the back of the truck, and in the fuel tank, as you can see right there, is wet, and there's a little droplet right here. This is news to me. The truck does have a fast lift pump system in it, so I'm assuming it's has something to do with up there. So let's investigate this and figure out what's going on here. All right, I got my flashlight. So this line definitely has a hole in it or something. Yeah, it's really leaking now. I just moved the line a little bit here. Yeah, wow. Okay, so that needs to be addressed literally immediately. Yeah, that's like constantly leaking now. I think my plan is gonna be take the hose clamp off, pull the line off, cut it, and put it back on, and see if that'll stop. I'm thinking there's a hole in the line, so if I cut it and put where there's no hole, I think we should be fine. Just slip it back on. So we'll do that real quick. So let's loosen this thing up, if I can even get on it. Sure, it might be blurry, but I cut a couple inches off this. See if we can stick it back on. That was definitely the problem there. Here's a piece that I cut off. I made this cut right here with the razor blade so I can pull it off that nipple. But so that wasn't leaking there, but I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like the line was like falling apart or something. So it was like coming apart. That was definitely where the leak was coming from. Yeah, so I'm more than satisfied that that's not going to leak. That was definitely junk. That was the right call to cut this little piece off. You can see where I cut it off. It's all nice and clean. Still, the rubber's all right. I got that thing pushed up past the nipple too. I mean, that was a tight fit, and I clamped it down with the hose clamp, but that is definitely what the issue was right there. So I'm happy with that. So I've been seeing a bunch of these things on YouTube. I don't have a pressure washer, and I don't really have the room to keep a pressure washer, and this little thing seems like it does wonders, honestly, and it's so well compact. Like I said, I've only watched a few reviews on YouTube of it, and I don't know. Let's rip the box open and see how it is. Alright, so this thing's pretty cool. I got it all unboxed and everything. I put the nozzle head together. I just like how DeWalt kind of does this, and the water line comes out below. So I mean, it's kind of looks fairly professional. Like I said, I don't own a pressure washer, and I don't feel like spending $1,000 on a pressure washer. I mean, this thing it's 2100 psi, 1.2 gallons per minute, and it's $300 from Home Depot. So I'm definitely going to take the gamble on this, even if it doesn't work. I mean, it's just, look how small it is, and like everything kind of, it fits into this little thing, and you can store it very easily, and it's just electric. Got your power cable right there. Let's see, so probably your water inlet, and then your water outlet right here. So you got a little soap dispenser, and then your on-off switch, and then that's it. First impression, out of that little thing, this is more impressive than I thought it was going to be completely honest with you. I thought this thing wasn't going to have this much power. I'm going to crawl under there. I'll try to do the best I can with the videoing. I'm just going to try to get all the built up crud and road debris and clean out the underside of the motor and the transmission, so I can kind of locate and identify where things are leaking from. Because right now, like I showed you under there, you can't see anything that's going on. So I gotta have a clean surface. So. Alright, I think I got the underside and everything on this thing clean enough to where I can see probably where the leak's coming from now. I got like all the really wet gunky stuff off, so I'm gonna let this dry probably for a while and let it completely dry off and see. I think it leaks more when the truck's actually running, so maybe once everything completely dries off, I'll fire the truck up, let it run for a bit, and maybe crawl under there to see if I can find anything leaking. But right now I definitely got to be patient and let everything dry off, because you're not going to be able to tell anything. But yeah, it's going to be the next step. Alright, just a little side piece. Some parts came in for my 2005 Ford F350. The Recon LEDs in all the bulb spots, my headlights, fog lights down here, and then the mirror lights and the cab lights. And as you can see, this one over here is out. And then I also noticed like how gross these like they're just so faded, they're pretty much yellow. Seriously, look how gross these things are. Like, these are supposed to be like a clear white lens, and that is just absolutely disgusting. So I got new lenses too. See the Recon cab roof light lenses, and yeah, right back here. These are the different ones you can get, and I got the clear ones for the LEDs. So let's get these put on. Look at that compared to that. Wow. I should have done that so long ago. I mean, that cab light burned out, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and I just ordered them. They just came in today. That's why I put this in this video, but I should have got those new clear lenses literally years ago. Wow. I did not realize how faded and gross and yellow those things were. Very happy with how this turned out. Alright, let's get back to the first gen. Alright, so here we are a few hours later. I got the truck in my garage. It's been drying off. Let's see if it's dry enough to see if we can find any sort of oil leaks. So I guess let's look up top first anyway. I got my light here. So kind of looking. Everything looks dry to me. Doesn't look like anything's on the side of the block leaking. And the front timing cover seal looks dry over here. Alright, I think I might have found culprit number one. The front of the timing cover is all dry, but this power steering pump and vacuum pump here is very wet. So I think we're gonna try to spray it down and clean it off some more and wipe it down after to see if it's leaking from anywhere around there. Alright, quick update here. I'm not videoing much because this is just a messy job. I'm using some parts cleaner, some engine degreaser. I think I've located possibly tool leaks, so that's why I'm just been working on cleaning the oily areas up. So there's a line right here that goes down to the bottom of the oil pan that feeds the turbo here, and I think there's like a rubber part on the line down there with some hose clamps, and that might be leaking. But I'm gonna take the this intake boot off so I can get more access to see. I'm just gonna keep cleaning it up, spray it down with brake clean to get it dried off to see if I can find any sort of leak there. On the driver's side, I think there was a lot of buildup on this vacuum pump and power steering pump here, and I think there's a leak coming from this. I think this is a very common problem on these trucks as well, actually. Like I said, I'm still working on getting this cleaned up all the way. Alright guys, kind of an update here. Areas I suspect that are leaking as clean as I possibly can without taking much off, obviously, besides the intake boot there. Show you where I think these two areas are leaking. So white circle is the oil filter, but I think the passenger side oil leak is either coming from this plate right here. There's a gasket in between this plate. I think this is the oil filter housing, I would assume. This plate that attaches to the block. Or I think it's this line with this rubber hose clamp. I think that's potentially leaking too, maybe. But as clean as I possibly can, so I'm just gonna let this thing sit and hopefully it starts leaking so I can kind of identify exactly where the area is. So we'll wait for that, and then for the driver's side, so it's a little bit easier to see. I think it's gonna be the vacuum and power steering pump. As I said, that's common, but I'm gonna let this sit for probably at least a few hours or maybe a couple days, and if I can't identify where the leaks are, maybe I'll let it run, I guess. But it just came up here about like an hour or so, so it was running. So I guess we'll just wait and see. Alright guys, here we are a few hours later. Everything, I get the glare out of there. Everything's nice and dry up there still. We're on the driver's side here, looking at the vacuum pump and power steering pump. I don't see any sort of oil residue starting anywhere just yet. So that's a little concerning to me. I figured that that's where it was coming from. And then on the passenger side, it looks like I was doing some research. This tube right here is the turbo drain line, and it's dry too. And then the plate up there I was looking at too, that's the oil cooler actually as well. And there's like 3 different gaskets on that as well, which looks dry to me too. Oil is leaking from somewhere. I mean, there was stuff everywhere, like gunk and old oil and debris. So maybe I should drive this thing around for a little bit and see if it'll start leaking. Alright, I just pulled the truck out of the garage. It's running now. I'm going to crawl under there real quick to see if it's leaking. Leaking fuel off that vacuum pump right now. I just established that this is leaking fuel. This isn't leaking oil. So it's the injection pump. There's fuel dripping onto the vacuum pump right next to this vacuum line that goes into the pump. You can see there's a wet spot right there. Lighting's really bad, but so I have seen, while the truck is running, multiple drips come out. See, there's this like connector right here. I think this is that's the fuel pressure sensor possibly. And that little cylinder right there with that other line coming on the top coming into it. And it's, see that wet spot right on top of that vacuum pump? So I'm wondering if there's not an oil leak and this thing's just been leaking fuel for so long, and over the years of all the crud and stuff on the motor, it just kind of turned a brownish color, making me think that it is leaking oil, but it's actually leaking fuel right here. So, you can see that or not, there's like a brass nut on the end of the cylinder. I don't know exactly where it's coming out. I wonder if it's coming out of that, and I wonder if I should tighten that up. So that's what I'm going to try to do and see if that does anything. I'm going to show you guys the leak. So this whole time, thinking I'm trying to chase a oil leak up here on the front of the motor, it turns out to be a fuel leak. I'm going to try to tighten this brass nut right here on the end. I think that's where it's coming from, is out the end. Surface is wiped down pretty good. I'm going to start the truck and we'll see if that drips. That is definitely still leaking. So I'm sure it probably needs some sort of Teflon tape in there or something, so that's gonna have to be pulled apart. I'm gonna do some more research before I tear into this thing. All right guys, so we're back with the first gen here. About a week or so later, I did some research on that fuel leak that we were having an issue with, and I found out what the proper term of that part was called, and I found out that we needed some O-rings to seal that back up. So let's take a look over here. On the injection pump, that cylinder that I didn't know what was called, this guy right down here, this is the KSB valve, is what they call it. In the winter time, when you first start up in the morning, it sounds like it somehow advances the timing to the injection pump and sends more fuel to the motor. so it can start faster, it seemed like. That's what it did. And there's a few O-rings in there that need to be replaced. So I found the part number from Bosch, and they sent me these 2 O-rings. So you can see one in there with the part number. And then there's a smaller one here too, right down there with this part number here too. As we saw, just the left side was leaking. So I'm gonna unthread that and pull out that plug and see if there's just an O-ring on that it's either one of those two, I'm thinking. Put the new one on, thread it back on, fire the truck up, and hopefully we'll be good to go on that. So let's get to work on that. Both new O-rings are on this, so that's good. I'm happy with that. So let's get this back in the truck and let's see if it stops leaking. All right, guys, moment of truth here. I'm gonna fire this thing up, and fingers crossed that those new O-rings are gonna seal that guy back up. So I'm happy to be able to find out that I did find some sort of leaks, and I was able to repair both of them to stop them from leaking, because as I stated in the beginning of the video, every time I took this truck out, it just kind of marked its territory and just left spots everywhere, and it was just so gross underneath the truck. So I'm gonna kind of end this video here as in fixing fuel leaks instead of oil leaks, and I'll be definitely making another video on this truck, because when I was waiting on those O-rings to come in, I actually did crawl back under there, and I did find some other issue actually, and it is an oil leak. So let's go under there real quick and take a peek. All right, guys, here we are back under the truck on the driver's side, and how I first thought the whole time that this vacuum pump and power steering pump was leaking, once I cleaned this all off, you can probably see right here. See how it looks wet right here? This is the timing cover, and this has definitely been opened up before, because you can kind of see this gray stuff right here. This is like some sort of a rubberized gasket that someone put in here. The previous owner did tell me that the killer dowel pin job has been done, so I'm assuming that's why the timing cover has been off. But as you can see, whoever did it, I mean, that right there, that's wet. I mean, it's not much, but over the years and the miles and stuff of the truck running, it's gonna create quite a bit of mess. So I'm going to make a separate video on pulling the timing cover off this truck and resealing it. I'm gonna order genuine Cummins gaskets, so I know that we're not gonna have an issue and it's gonna be quality parts. And while I am in there, I'm gonna do the front main seal. I don't think it's leaking, but you can't really tell because the harmonic balancer is in the way. It is a little wet in there, but I think it's probably just from the timing cover. But I mean, while I'm in there, the whole timing cover is gonna be off anyway, so why not do that seal as well? So if you like this content and you like my first gen here, be sure to stay tuned for getting my front timing cover resealed up.